On the first Saturday in May 2009, a 50-1 gelding crossed the wire at Churchill Downs. He had been dead last at the half-mile pole. He won by 6 3/4 lengths. The announcer could not identify him. That was not even the most impossible result in this race's history. 5 times since 1875, the Kentucky Derby has delivered an upset that no morning line and no pedigree page could explain. What did those 5 horses share that nobody at the rail could see? The answers are buried in 5 different decades, 5 different barns, and 5 starting gates. The Kentucky Derby has been run since 1875, more than 150 editions. The favorites win most years. The breeding farms and the bankrolls usually get what they paid for. But some years, a horse nobody wanted walks into the paddock at Churchill Downs and walks out wearing roses. On an airstrip in Caracas, a colt with cracked hooves once boarded a cargo plane with no one waiting at the other end. Outside Albuquerque, a man drove a 2-horse trailer through the night because his budget did not cover shipping. Not one of the 5 horses you are about to meet cared what the morning line said about them. Number 5. The morning of May 7, 2022, a colt named Ethereal Road was scratched from the Kentucky Derby field. His departure opened one slot in the 20-horse gate. The horse that filled it was Rich Strike, an 80-1 afterthought trained by Eric Reed at his Small Mercury Equine Center near Lexington, Kentucky. Reed had spent decades building a modest stable. He had never saddled a Derby starter. The jockey was Sonny Leon, a rider who had built his career grinding through the claiming ranks at Mahoning Valley in Ohio. Most of the national broadcast audience had never heard either name. Rich Strike was compact, not elegant. He ran with his head low, almost lunging into the dirt, like a horse carrying a grudge he could not put down. He was thick through the chest and short in the leg. In the Churchill Downs paddock that afternoon, he looked like a horse headed for a Tuesday card at Turfway, not the most famous 2 minutes in sports. The gate opened, and Rich Strike settled into last. At the half-mile pole, he was more than 15 lengths behind the leaders. Sonny Leon sat still. He did not panic. Around the far turn, Leon angled his horse to the outside and let him run. Rich Strike did not build speed gradually. He detonated. Through the stretch, he blew past horse after horse, and when he hit the wire, he was 3/4 of a length clear of epicenter. The NBC broadcast team lost composure on live television. In the winner's circle, Rich Strike lunged at the outrider's pony and tried to bite it. He was so full of fight that crossing the finish line had not been enough. The race was over. He was still running it. If you appreciate what I am doing here, please subscribe. It means a lot to me. Now let us dive back in. Number 4. Not every upset needs a fairy tale behind it. On the first Saturday in May 2005, a gray colt named Giacomo went off at 50-1 at Churchill Downs. He was sired by Holy Bull and trained by John Shireffs, a quiet California horseman who had never won a Triple Crown race. His jockey was Mike Smith. The consensus pick that year was Bellamy Road, the horse every serious handicapper in the country had circled. Bellamy Road had crushed the Wood Memorial by 17 1/4 lengths. Magazines were already writing his coronation story before the gate opened. Giacomo sat off the pace through the backstretch. He saved ground on the turn. He did not make a move until the top of the stretch. Then he found another gear that nobody in the press box believed existed and hit the wire half a length in front of closing argument. There was no dramatic backstory, no tearful connections, just a horse that ran faster than anyone believed he could on the afternoon it mattered most. Sometimes the upset is quiet. Sometimes the only thing that screams is the scoreboard. Now the track is not Churchill Downs. Now we are standing on a tarmac in Venezuela, and the year is 1971. Number 3. A colt named Canonero II was loaded onto a cargo plane in Caracas. He was bred in Venezuela by Edward Benjamin Taylor, purchased cheaply and trained by Juan Arias under conditions that would not pass inspection at any major American stable. When the plane touched down in Miami, the colt stepped off with cracked hooves and visible ribs. He was underweight by at least 40 pounds. He looked like a horse that needed a veterinarian, not a starting gate. Not a single major American racing rider picked him to hit the board. The Daily Racing Form treated his entry like a clerical error. He was shipped to Louisville with his Venezuelan groom, a borrowed stall, and almost nothing else. The Louisville press laughed openly. Canonero II was rangy and almost gaunt by American standards. He had a long, sweeping stride that ate up ground without appearing to rush. His legs looked too thin, his hip too narrow. But he moved like a horse that did not know he was supposed to be tired. And when the gate opened on the first Saturday in May 1971, he ran the entire field into the dirt, 3 3/4 lengths at the wire. Churchill Downs went quiet for half a second before the disbelief hit. Then he won the Preakness Stakes 2 weeks later at Pimlico by the same decisive margin. 2/3 of the Triple Crown for a horse that had arrived in America with cracked feet and no stall reservation. The Belmont Stakes should have crowned him. He arrived at Belmont Park with an infection in the same hoof that had cracked on the tarmac in Caracas. He ran the race on damaged feet. He finished 4th. He did not lose because he lacked the talent. He lost because the journey that carried him to America had been breaking his body since before the first gate ever opened. Canonero II returned home to Venezuela. He sired winners across South American tracks for years. But in the United States, the racing public had already moved on. The horse that flew in on a cargo plane and outran every blue-blooded colt in the country was forgotten by the country he embarrassed. Number 2. Before we reach the top of this list, we need to talk about the horse that did not win. In 1953, a gray colt named Native Dancer was the most famous racehorse in the United States. Not one of the most famous, the most famous. He had won all 11 of his career starts. He was the first horse that millions of Americans watched on their new television sets, and CBS built segments around him. They called him the Gray Ghost. On Derby Day at Churchill Downs, he was sent off at 1-7, the shortest priced favorite anyone could remember. His owner, Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt, expected nothing less than a coronation. Dark Star was trained by Eddie Hayward for the Kane Hoy stable. He had shown flashes of early speed in smaller company, but nothing in his record suggested he belonged on the same racetrack as Native Dancer. His odds were 25-1. He was the kind of horse the clockers ignored when he galloped past in the morning. Dark Star broke cleanly and seized the lead. Native Dancer stumbled, leaving the gate, was bumped, and lost 2 lengths before the first turn. Through the backstretch, the Gray Ghost closed the gap. Through the turn, he drew closer. In the stretch, 2 horses ran head and head, neither one giving an inch. Dark Star held by 1 head. That was the margin between a coronation and a catastrophe. Native Dancer's connections said the stumble at the start cost him the race. Dark Star's camp said their horse ran the race of his life and earned every inch of that head margin. No one settled the argument in 1953. No one has settled it since. Native Dancer won every other race he ever entered. 21 victories in 22 career starts. The one loss was the Derby. The only horse that ever beat him was Dark Star. And most racing fans alive today could not tell you Dark Star's name if you gave them a month. The year is 2009. It is raining at Churchill Downs, and a horse trailer that has been on the road for more than 20 hours is pulling into the backside. Number 1. The man behind the wheel was Chip Woolley. He had driven the trailer himself from Roswell, New Mexico, across 3 states because the budget did not include professional shipping. The horse inside was a gelding named Mind That Bird, purchased for $9,500 at a yearling sale in Canada, barely 15 hands 2 inches tall. He did not look like a Kentucky Derby horse. He looked like the kind of horse you would walk past without turning your head. Mine. That bird was sired by Birdstone, a stallion remembered mostly for ending Smarty Jones's Triple Crown bid in 2004. The dam side offered nothing to excite a pedigree analyst. The gelding had won allowance races and placed in minor stakes at Sunland Park in New Mexico. None of it translated to the national stage. His morning line was 50-1. Calvin Borel took them out. Borel had won the Derby 2 years earlier aboard Street Sense. He knew Churchill Downs in the rain better than almost any rider alive. He knew where the footing held along the inside rail when the rest of the surface turned to mud. On this afternoon, while every other jockey in the field steered wide through the slop, Borel went where no one else would go. At the half-mile pole, Mind That Bird was last, 14 lengths behind the leaders. The camera barely found him. Borel sat still. He waited. Then he asked. Mind That Bird hit the rail and started running. Past 1 horse, past 3, past 5. Through the far turn, he was a streak of mud and motion along the inside fence, threading gaps that did not exist until he was already through them. Into the stretch, the noise at Churchill Downs changed. It went from anticipation to confusion to something that sounded like disbelief. 6 3/4 lengths. One of the largest winning margins in modern Derby history. From dead last. A $9,000 gelding from New Mexico, ridden by a jockey who chose the only path nobody else wanted. For a full second after the wire, no one in the grandstand knew his name. Mind That Bird. 50-1. The rail, the rain, the wire. After the wire, the stories scatter. Rich Strike never won another graded stakes race. Eric Reed brought him home to Lexington, and the colt that stunned Churchill Downs never found that gear again. Giacomo retired to stud and was eventually exported to Japan. His name appears in pedigrees, but the horse himself faded from memory almost as quickly as he arrived. Canonero II returned to Venezuela and stood at stud for years, siring winners on South American tracks. In the United States, he remains a footnote in a race most Americans believe belongs only to American horses. Dark Star lived out his days in quiet retirement, far from any spotlight. Native Dancer is still celebrated. The horse that beat him is not. Mind That Bird went home. He retired to a ranch near Roswell, the same town the trailer departed from the night before the Derby. He grazed in open pasture. He was visited by school children and racing fans and strangers who drove hours just to stand beside a little horse that barely reached their shoulder. He was loved the way winners of richer races rarely are, not for what he produced, for what he did. Once. On one afternoon. In the rain. The Kentucky Derby has been run more than 150 times. The favorites still win most years. The breeding farms still collect. The clockers still circle the same familiar names every spring. But the 5 horses on this list proved something that cannot be trained into a horse and cannot be bought at any auction. On the first Saturday in May, a horse that nobody believes in can make 150,000 people hold their breath at the same time. The next upset is already alive somewhere. It might be standing in a barn that nobody is watching, owned by someone who cannot afford to ship it properly, trained by someone the racing press has never once named. The Derby does not care about credentials. It never has. 6 3/4 lengths, 80 to 1, 25 to 1, 50 to 1. 5 horses across 5 decades that the morning line said had no business winning. Not one of them cared. If you like this story, do not miss the next one appearing on your screen right now.